would be, quote, out of Syria, quote, very soon. Retired four-star General Jack Keane is chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. He is also a Fox News senior strategic analyst. And General, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, happy Easter. Good to see you, Maria.
We've spoken a lot, the two of us, about President Obama pulling out of Iraq too soon and triggering a lot of pain afterwards. First, talk to us about that. Was that one of the president's, then President Obama's biggest mistakes in the Mideast?
He had two major strategic failures. One was pulling out of Iraq, and the consequences was ISIS that marauded over the Middle East. It was absolutely a jolt for radical Islamists worldwide. All of their recruiting went up, and we all saw the horrible, barbaric consequences of that. President Obama is accountable for that strategic failure. The second one was the nuclear deal that we've talked about many times.
That's right. Okay, so those were his two major mistakes. We'll talk about the nuclear deal in a moment. But first, let's listen to President Trump in Ohio this past week. Here's what he said, General.
We're knocking the hell out of ISIS. We'll be coming out of Syria like very soon. Let the other people take care of it now. Very soon. Very soon we're coming out. We're going to have 100% of the caliphate, as they call it, sometimes referred to as land. We're taking it all back quickly. But we're going to be coming out of there real soon. Going to get back to our country, where we belong, where we want to be.
This concerns you, General. Tell us why. Is he walking down the same road that President Obama did when he pulled out of Iraq too soon?
Yeah, pretty much, but even worse consequences, though. Yeah, I think, the president gets advice from people who, want to have the United States, pull out of the world and come home and take care of our people and grow our economy, et cetera. And certainly there's some truth to that. But the United States is a global leader. And the reality is the president went to Riyadh last summer and stood there in front of 55 leaders and said, I'm going to stand with you against the #1 strategic enemy of the Iranians. I'm going to stand with you to put down and drive out the radical Islamists. Now, if we pull out of Syria, what we got to end, and what I want the audience to understand is how we end a war is actually more important than how we begin it. You've got to not just win the conflict or the war, Maria. You've got to win the peace that follows after that. And that's about stability and recovery. As it pertains to ISIS in Syria, there's 3,000 or so fighters still left between Iraq and Syria. The leaders of ISIS are down in the Euphrates River Valley in the southeastern part of Syria.
Right.
We've got to clean that up. And even after we do that, we have to help the region in Syria there, the eastern region, stabilize itself and recover. If we don't, I guarantee that ISIS will reemerge, and it'll be another jolt in the arm, and their barbarism will start all over again. The second thing that will happen is we will be turning Syria over to the Russians, to the Iranians, and Hezbollah, and they will encroach on Israel, and there's a potential war on the horizon between Israel and Hezbollah.
Wow.
All of that is the potential of this. And then there's this final thing, which troubles me, because President Trump renewed the relationship between the United States and the Sunni Arabs to stand up against the Iranians and the radicals.
Right.
He's done that. If he pulls out of Syria, he's doing the very same thing that Obama did, letting our Sunni Arab allies down. It makes no sense to me.
I assume the Saudis would not like that at all. So who is the bigger threat here? Russia?
Russia is a major threat.
Yeah, or the Mideast.
What Russia is trying to do, Maria, is they are trying to replace the United States as the most influential country that's outside the region of the Middle East. They have a strategic foothold in the Middle East like they've not had in the past, and it's in Syria. And they're going to leverage this against our Sunni Arabs. That's the reality. They want geopolitical control and influence. Why? 55% of the world's economy still passes through the Middle East.
Wow.
That's the reality of it.
This is really...
And who influences that has major geopolitical influence in the world. The United States cannot disengage. We didn't choose this civil war in Syria. That's for sure. And we contributed to ISIS being in Syria. That is also for sure. we've got to stay the course here and do what's right. We're not talking about a lot of troops here, Maria.
Right. Well, you make a lot of good points. You just said 3,000 troops, right? That's the number that we're talking about?
The enemy has 3,000. We've got a couple thousand. The other thing is, we forget history. We stayed in Europe post-World War II,
right,
post-conflict for stability and recovery in Germany, in Italy, and Japan. We stayed in the Korean War in South Korea for the same reason. We stayed in Bosnia-Herzegovina for 10 years after the conflict is over. We won the peace in all of those conflicts. And as a matter of fact, in Germany, Italy, Japan, and Korea, we still have our troops there.
That's right. That's right. That's a good point. All right, let me move on. You're making so many important points this morning, General. Let me move on to North Korea. The month of May is going to be really critical. Not only do we have the May 12th deadline for the Iran deal, which many people feel that if it's not fixed, the president will not renew the U.S.'s participation in that Iran deal. But then you've got this North Korea meeting. The president will meet with Kim Jong-un. How extraordinary is it to you that you've got the North Koreans meeting with the South Koreans, then Kim Jong-un taking a secret, mysterious train to Beijing to meet with President Xi, and now, of course, on the horizon is this deal to meet with President Trump in the month of May. What are you expecting? Lay out the two positions for us.
Well, first of all, the speed at which this diplomacy has moved is nothing short of remarkable, and it's largely due to one thing, and that's the Trump administration's maximum pressure campaign and also putting the military option back on the table. And I'm hopeful this is real on the part of the North Koreans and the Chinese, and it's not just a delaying tactic to advance their technology, which is what they've always done. But when I think about the framework for this, I think what will happen is the North Koreans will come in there and they'll want some concessions, I suspect, just for having the meeting, because that's what they've done in the past. We won't buy into that. They will also say we want to denuclearize the peninsula. And that's an interesting term that President Xi and President Kim uses.
Right.
And what they really mean by that is they want to not just take nukes out of North Korea, they want to dissolve the alliance between South Korea and the United States and remove the nuclear umbrella that the United States has to protect South Korea. And they also want to pull all U.S. troops out of South Korea. And then, of course, they'll want all the sanctions to be removed. That's kind of their negotiating points.
General, it's great to see you this morning. Thank you so much. General Jack Keane joining us right there. Alan Dershowitz and Bud Cummins on the decision not to appoint a special counsel.